As a girl with the glute genetics of a pancake, I used to be so insecure about how skinny my legs were, but after locking in last year and doing the same weekly workout routine, my legs have almost doubled in size. So today I'm going to share with you the 5-day workout split that helped me build an hourglass figure, as well as all the tips and tricks I wish I knew when I started, how to get the most out of your workouts, and some mistakes that you need to avoid that held me back for far too long. Day 1, we're training glutes, but baddies don't skip their warm-up, so first we're doing 5 minutes of light cardio followed by dynamic stretches. And girl, if you have been skipping your warm-ups, if you want to reduce your risk of injury, improve your mobility, keep your joints healthy, and have a bigger range of motion in your lifts, then we're going to stop skipping the warm-ups. I'm not going to repeat the warm-up in the rest of the video because I basically do the same warm-up on all of my leg days, and then on upper body days I just add in a few more dynamic upper body stretches. We're starting off the workout with 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps of cable kickbacks. This is going to be really helpful to get that mind to muscle connection going with the glutes, so get yourself strapped in. If your gym doesn't have ankle cuffs, then you can also use the foot straps, which go around your entire foot rather than just your ankle. And for this exercise, we're mainly going to be targeting the gluteus medius, which is the side and upper part of your glute, as well as some of the gluteus maximus, which is just the biggest muscle in your glutes. The best technique that I've found to keep yourself stable with cable kickbacks is step your non-working leg, so that's the stationary leg, over the cable, have a slight lean forward, and really focus on squeezing your glute and control the movement the whole way. You'll see different people using slightly different forms for cable kickbacks, but I prefer to think about initiating movement from my hip rather than just bending my knee. That helps me get the best connection with my glutes. You don't have to kick up too high either, and just have a little pause when you reach the top of the movement. Squeeze your glutes as hard as you can and then lower back down. And obviously don't forget to do the other leg because we do not want to be wandering around with one glute bigger than the other. I like to use a light to moderate weight for cable kickbacks because for this movement I want to focus on my form. I don't want to overdo it, so I'm shifting the focus onto my lower back instead. Next, we're moving on to the queen of glute exercises, the hip thrust. We're doing 3 sets here, and I always start off barbell hip thrust with a banded warm-up set. I use a really light weight and focus on pushing my knees out against the band. After that, I work the weight up by just doing a couple of reps and then adding more weight on until I reach my maximum weight, which we're going to use to do 10 to 12 reps. I used to always blame my lack of glute progress solely on my terrible genetics, but although that does play a massive role, I recently realized, I'm talking last year, that my form for hip thrusts had been wrong the entire time I'd been doing them. I used to do them in such a way that I was bending my lower back at the bottom of the movement and scooping the weight up because that's what I thought the technique was, but turns out that shifted basically all of the emphasis onto my lower back instead of my glutes, and it's actually really dangerous. So if you're struggling to get the form down, I want you to think about keeping your whole upper body as a stiff plank. The box or the bench is positioned just below your shoulder blades, and I want you to think about that point as a hinge point. So you're hinging your entire upper body from that point, and squeeze your glutes as hard as you can at the top, like you're trying to squeeze a penny between your glutes so it doesn't fall out. If you were messing up the form as badly as I was previously, then this is going to make the movement a lot harder, so you might need to lighten the weight and then work back up. But what's most important is you nail the form first, because if you don't, you're so much more likely to get injured, especially if you're lifting really heavy weights. For the second and third set, we're doing 12 to 15 reps, and I drop the weight each time. Regardless of the weight though, we want to keep the movement slow and controlled because it's the time under tension that's super important for muscle growth. Our last set's going to be our lightest set, so I want you to push it as hard as you can, give it everything you've got, and go to complete failure. Also, can someone just tell me why this feels so illegal? Just why? Now we're moving on to a hinge movement that's going to target the glutes and a little bit of hamstrings too. It's the Romanian deadlift. I don't know why I say it like that. To help with your grip strength, you can use liquid chalk or straps. I'm using straps here because I've just been preferring straps recently. And this is going to help you squeeze out an extra 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 reps so you can get more work out of your lower body without your upper body fatiguing and failing first. As someone with really dodgy shoulders, I find lifting straps super helpful because my upper body just can't cope. In that position, I can't hold on to the bar for that long. We're doing 2 sets here. The first set's going to be our heavier set of 6 to 8 reps, and then we're going to drop the weight to do 10 to 12 reps. I feel like the form for Romanian deadlifts is one of the hardest to master, and it's the one that I get asked about most often. So here's how I thought about the movement initially when I was first learning it. Imagine you just got out of your car, but you dropped your keys. You're bending down to pick up your keys, but you're also trying to shut the car door with your butt at the same time. It's a weird analogy, I know, but trust me, it works. A few other tips that I found helpful helpful, we're retracting your shoulder blades, so keeping your shoulders back, keep your chest up, and keep your neck in line with your spine the whole time. On the way up, it's also helpful to think about pushing the ground away with your feet rather than trying to pull the bar upwards. For our final glute exercise of day 1, we're doing seated hip abductions. If you don't have the hip abduction machine, then you can also use a resistance band. But we're going to do 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps here to really burn out the glutes. You've got 2 options with this exercise. You can either lean back and pull yourself into the seat using the handles, or you can actually lean forwards and grab onto the machine. Both forms are correct, but they will target the glutes in a slightly different way. So what I like to do is do half of my set in the seated back position and then move forwards and do the other half leaning forwards. That just means that I'm covering all bases. It's also going to be slightly easier when you're leaning forwards, so you'll be recruiting more glute muscles and just able to target different areas of the glutes a bit more. It's day 2, our first upper body workout of the week. It is exciting. Fun fact, I start my workout week on a Tuesday. I have a rest day on a Monday, so I can avoid that Monday slump feeling. And I'm going to be completely honest, as soon as I made that switch, all of my workouts got better. I mean, just think about it. There's no rule that says you have to start on a Monday, and you can just eliminate Mondays completely. It's kind of my little secret life hack, so shh, don't tell anyone. But before we jump in, first as always, baddies don't skip their warm-up, so we're going to do the 5 minutes of light cardio and some dynamic stretches. And then our first exercise today is cable rear delt flies. I actually had to re-record this, so now you know. But we're going to do 2 sets of 12 to 15 reps. The rear delts are a tiny muscle in the back of your shoulder, but they can really make a big difference in how full and round your shoulders actually look. You want to set up the cables so the pulleys are about in line with your shoulders or just below. Cross your hands over to grab the cable on the opposite side of the machine. Keep your chest up and have a slight bend in your elbows as you move your hands back. I did struggle initially to get the mind to muscle connection with this movement, but it really comes from your back. So instead of thinking about pulling the cables with your hands, try and visualize using your back to pull the whole cables backwards as well. If you're feeling it in your traps too much, try switching to just one cable, because usually focusing on working one delt at a time can really help with the mind to muscle connection. Now for one of my favorite exercises, the lat pull down. We're doing 2 sets here. The first set's going to be a bit heavier for 10 to 12 reps. Then we're going to drop the weight and do a lighter set for 12 to 15 reps. You want your hands just outside shoulder width apart, and in order to engage your back more, it's helpful to use a hook grip. What this means is your thumb is on top of the bar rather than gripping the bar like you're riding a motorbike. You want to keep your chest up and think about pulling the bar towards your upper chest. A little cue to help you engage your lats is visualizing getting your elbows in your back pockets. We're going nice and slow on the way up because we want that tension when our muscles under the most stretch, because that's what's going to give us the most growth. Next, we're heading back to the cable machine to work the side of our delts, doing cable lateral raises. We're going to do 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps on each arm, and I'm using the same cuff attachment as I use for cable kickbacks because I find that it helps me to get the mind to muscle connection with my side delts a lot better, and it also takes some of the strain off of my wrist when I'm just using the handle attachment. My shoulder issues were actually kind of flaring up today, so I tweaked this exercise a bit. As you can see, I've bent my elbow, so I'm creating a shorter lever. That means I'm going to be able to produce more force, so the exercise is going to be easier. Usually I'd have my arm a lot straighter with just a slight bend at the elbow. You don't want to go too heavy with this exercise either, because if you do, then you can end up using momentum, and that's going to take some of the tension off of the muscles that we're trying to work, which are our side delts. Okay fam, I don't know what just happened, but my microphone literally just died, so I'm sorry about the audio change. But next we're moving on to a cheeky little bicep and tricep superset. I like pairing bicep and triceps in a superset because they're what we call antagonistic muscles, which essentially means one's on the front of your body and one's on the back of your body. When your biceps contract, your triceps relax, so that makes them perfect to have in a superset. There are quite a few other different antagonistic muscle group pairs, so you could try supersetting any of those in your workouts, but there are also other methods of approaching supersets which work well too. So we're going to do 10 to 12 reps of alternating dumbbell curls, and then we're going to go straight into another 10 to 12 reps of overhead tricep extensions. Supersets are really great if you're short on time, and they also up the intensity of your workouts quite a lot. I really like overhead tricep extension because you get a lot of tension in this most stretched position, which is important for muscle growth. Next, we're moving on to seated shoulder press. I prefer seated to standing shoulder press because you're a lot more stable, and that'll usually allow you to push heavier and get more out of it. We're doing 3 sets. Our first set is going to be our heaviest set, and that's going to be 6 to 8 reps, and then we're going to drop the weight and do 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Because shoulder press is more of a compound lift, if you're a beginner, I'd recommend putting this at the start of your workout. In general, we usually want to put our compound lifts at the start because they use the most energy, because you're using multiple muscle groups. As you get more advanced in the gym, there are different benefits to switching up the order that you have your exercises in, but we don't need to go too much into that just now. A couple of cues that are really helpful for a seated shoulder press is keeping your chest up, and while you're pressing the weights upwards, I want you to push through your feet. This is going to help keep you more stable, but it also primes your body in a way that will allow you to push the weight for more reps. I can't go super heavy with shoulder press just because of my dodgy shoulders, but to get the weights into position, it can be really helpful to kick them up one at a time, because that way you're conserving your energy and you'll be able to actually put more effort into your set. It is leg day number 2. Today we are training quads and glutes, and this is arguably, well, not arguably at all, this is the most difficult workout of my entire week. My muscles usually don't feel that sore after most of my workouts, but this one, I'm feeling it for the next 2 days minimum. So after you've warmed up, we're starting off the workout with 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps of seated leg curl. And no, this is not a quads exercise or a glutes exercise, but warming up the hamstrings is going to be really important for the other lifts in our workout. So we're using the leg curl to pre-fatigue our hamstrings so that the glutes are more active. And I really just treat this as sort of an extension of my warm-up. I usually like to lean forward for seated leg curl because it gives you a greater stretch on your hamstrings. However, that will also make the movement harder, so you might need to lighten up the weight. You want your knees to be in line with the pivot on the machine, and really squeeze your hamstrings when you get to the bottom. I want a slight pause there and then slowly control the weight up. When you reach the top of the movement, you also don't want the weight to touch the stack, because if you do, then that's taking some of the tension off of your hamstrings, which is not what we want. Okay, so once your hamstrings are nice and warm, we're moving on to hack squat. Yay! For me, I feel like hack squat is one of those exercises where I don't love it, I don't hate it, it's just kind of there, but it does really burn the quads. I always start off with a warm-up set with no weight on the machine at all, because the machine itself is actually weighted. I can't remember exactly how heavy it is, but I do my warm-up set and then I go into my heaviest set for 6 to 8 reps. You can target different parts of your legs more or less depending on your foot placement on the hack squat machine. So typically having a higher and wider foot placement will shift some of the emphasis onto your glutes, and then having a closer and lower foot placement will shift some of the emphasis onto your quads. For this one, I want to focus on quads, so I'm going to keep my foot stance fairly close together. I often get asked about how deep you should go in things like squats, whether that's hack squat or barbell back squat or even leg press, and it really comes down to the individual. So if you have short femurs and a longer torso, then you're more likely to be good at squatting and be able to get like completely ass to grass. But if you're like me and you have long femurs and a shorter torso, then it's going to be a lot harder to hit depth. There are also other factors that play a role, like your ankle mobility and things like that. But what I want you to get here is that there are multiple different forms for the squat, which are all correct. So typically you'll see a lot of people squatting pretty upright and then going completely ass to grass. Because I've got longer femurs, I can't actually squat like that, so I need to lean forward slightly to help me hit depth. Obviously you can't do that in hack squat though, because your back's against the pad. I don't know if it's just me, but I find hack squats quite uncomfortable if my feet are in a low foot placement, so whether I'm trying to target the quads or the glutes, I like to have my feet higher up anyway. However, hack squat is a really safe machine to fail on, so for our last set, we're gonna go completely to failure. To be completely honest, the first time I went to failure on this, I was so scared because I thought I would just fall at the bottom, but you don't, you just kind of sit there and then just shuffle out. So just in case your legs weren't shaking after that last set, now we're moving on to Bulgarian split squats. We're doing 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps here, and recently I've switched from using a bench to a lower box because I felt that that's helped me shift some of the emphasis off of my lower back and more onto my glutes. The shoes are coming off so I can push better through my feet, and I also just don't want to ruin my shoes when I'm putting them on top of the box. But a little hack that will work for most people to help you find the right distance to be from the box is sit on the box with one leg extended in front of you, and the position on the floor that your foot lands is where you want to have your working leg. Once you're in position, we're going to shift the emphasis onto our glutes more by leaning slightly forwards at the waist. If your torso is more upright, then that's going to target your quads more. Your back leg is your stabilizing leg, so we don't want to be pushing through that one. We want most, if not all, of the force to be coming through that front leg. If you're struggling with your balance, you can try using one dumbbell and then hold on to a wall or something for support, but I find 2 dumbbells is actually a really good option because you're kind of equally weighted on both sides of your body. So once you've done 10 to 12 reps reps on one leg, you've got to do the other leg. I feel like that's the most painful part of Bulgarian split squats, is finishing one leg and then realizing you've got a whole other leg to do before you've even finished that set. But thankfully we've only got 2 sets. Next is an exercise that I've actually grown to love, and that's power bag walking lunges. We're gonna do 2 sets of 15 to 20 reps where each rep is 1 step. If you don't have a power bag or a sandbag like I'm using, you can either use 2 dumbbells at your sides or just grab a barbell. Depending on how heavy the bag is for you, you're gonna have to use quite a lot of leg drive to get it up. I also kind of use a little hip thrust kind of motion and then sling it up over one shoulder. This took me many attempts when I first had it in my program, but what helped me was starting with the lighter bag, getting the movement down, and then increasing the weight after that. And then once you finally got the bag up, which feels like a workout in itself, you gotta do your set. The biggest mistake to avoid with walking lunges is don't think about it like you're walking a tightrope. No tightrope walking here. It's just gonna make you really unstable. So instead, I want you to think about stepping either side of the tightrope. If you've got a line on the floor at your gym, this can also be really helpful. But with each step you take, you want to drive up through your front foot and go straight into the next step. When you reach the end, you might be thinking, what do I do with the bag now? And that's exactly what I was thinking. But all you need to do is just stand up and drop it. Like, it's not gonna go anywhere. For our last exercise of the day, we're gonna burn out those quads and do leg extensions. Our first set, we're gonna go heavier for 8 to 10 reps, and then we're gonna drop the weight and do 10 to 12 reps. Your knees should be in line with the pivot on the machine, and you really want to pull yourself into the seat. I know this is the last exercise, but there is no slacking here. Your quads should be burning by the end of it, and if they're not, you need to do more reps. And with each rep you do, you want to squeeze your quads at the top and then slowly lower the weight back down. That's how you're going to get most out of it. Now girlies, this split has honestly changed the game for me. I noticed recently that my legs have more than doubled in size since I started lifting, and it's all down to training legs 3 days a week. Now don't get me wrong, if you're a beginner, you can still see amazing progress by training legs 2 days a week, but as long as your recovery is on point, you're sleeping enough, you're eating enough to fuel your workouts properly, and in most cases 3 days a week is probably going to be your best option. I'll share my 3rd leg workout soon, but another way that you can incorporate training legs 3 days a week is with a 3-day full body split. This is the perfect option if you're a super busy girly, or if you just don't want to spend 5 days in the gym. I've included all of my favorite workouts for this split in my 8-week transformation challenge, so if you want to sign up for that, the link's in the description. It's actually brand new, and you'll get access to an exclusive WhatsApp community where we'll be sharing our wins and just be encouraging each other and keeping each other accountable so we can all reach our goals so much faster. So after that workout, you'll probably be glad to know it's rest day, yay! But trust me, you will definitely need it. We're kicking off our 2nd upper body workout of the week with standing barbell overhead press. No, it's not the most optimal exercise for the shoulders, but we did do seated shoulder press earlier in the week, and this will really just switch things up a bit. This is a compound exercise for the shoulders, and you want to make sure that you're really well warmed up before you start this lift. We're doing 3 sets. The first set's going to be your heaviest weight for 6 to 8 reps, and then we're going to drop the weight for 10 to 12 reps for the last 2 sets. The main mistakes to look out for this one are make sure that you're not flaring your elbows out too much, keep your core tight, and don't use any leg drive. That means you don't want to be jumping to push the weight up, because that's actually a different exercise completely called push press. We're doing a strict press here, so that means no momentum and most of the force is coming from your upper body. You want to avoid overarching your back too much, and at the top of the movement you create a little window with your arms in the bar, so as you bring the bar to the highest position, you're going to stick your head through that window. Also remember to control the lowering phase so you're keeping the tension on your shoulders. Next is one of my absolute favorite exercises for the side delts, and that's lying cuffed cable lateral raises. There we go. You want to bring the bench in front of the cable machine at a slight incline. Attach the cuff attachments to the cable pulleys near the bottom of the machine, and we're going to cross our hands over similar to what we did when we were doing rear delt cable flies. The main cue that's really helpful in this movement is think about pushing the weight away from you rather than pulling it upwards with your wrist. Just like regular cable lateral raises, we want the movement to be coming from our shoulders rather than pulling with our wrists or our hands. This is another one of those exercises where building the skill of mind to muscle connection comes in so handy. So I want you to visualize the muscle working as you're lifting the weight. And as always, we want to keep the movement slow and controlled the whole way. Next, we're staying at the cable machine, but we're going to spin the bench around for single arm cable rows. Set the cable pulley to about waist height, and this time you're going to attach the handle attachment. I like to have the bench at a slight angle depending on which arm I'm doing so that I can access the machine a bit better. This exercise is all about finding the right flow. So when you're in the most stretched position, I want you to really feel that stretch in your lat, and then bring the cable back towards you and squeeze your back muscles as hard as you can, like you're trying to get your elbow in your back pocket. On the way forwards, you want your upper body to really follow that motion, and the same as you're moving back. This is going to give you a really good stretch on one lat at a time. So once you've done 10 to 12 reps on one side, you're going to shuffle the bench a bit and do 10 to 12 reps on the other side. and we've got 2 sets of that. This upper body workout is pretty much the definition of minimal equipment, because next we're staying at the cable machine for a superset of biceps and triceps. So we've got 2 sets of 10 to 12 reps. First we're doing tricep pushdowns, and then we're going to go into behind the back cable curls. So for tricep pushdowns, you're going to attach the rope attachment, and you want the cable pulley set to about eye level. Remember to keep your elbows pinned into your sides, and when you reach the bottom, you're going to pull the ropes apart slightly and really squeeze your triceps. Also make sure that your spine stays neutral and you're not bending your upper back over too much. Once you've done 10 to 12 reps, you're going to switch out the rope for 2 handles and put the cable pulleys to the bottom of the cable machine. Facing away from the machine this time, grab the handles and take a couple of steps forwards. At the bottom of this movement, your arms should be extended out behind you, so you should feel a slight stretch in your biceps before you even start moving. Then you're going to curl the way up just like you would when doing a regular dumbbell curl. Having a mixture of dumbbell and cable exercises for the same muscle groups is really helpful, because dumbbells and cables have different resistance curves. That means when you're lifting the weight, your muscle's going to be challenged in different ways. The resistance from dumbbells always acts in the same direction as gravity, whereas when you're using cables, the resistance is always in the opposite direction to the direction that you're moving. So that means your muscles are under constant tension, which, as we know, is important for muscle growth. So both have their place in a well-rounded routine, but some people might argue that cables actually have a slight edge because of that constant tension. As a little finisher to really burn out the back, you've got 2 options. One, if you can do a pull-up, you're going to do as many pull-ups as possible for 2 sets. Or you can try one of my absolute favorite finishers, the assisted pull-up drop set. I guess it's kind of more like an anti-drop set because you're adding on more weight to increase the resistance. But anyway, same idea. So first you're going to do as many reps as you can with the lightest weight of assistance. Then when you fail that, you're going to increase the weight, so that means you're increasing the resistance and it's going to be easier for you to pull yourself up. And you're going to go to failure again. I want you to do this at least 3 times. So 1 big drop set, but you're increasing the resistance 3 times. Not going to lie, that upper body workout really cooked today. But now, we're moving on to leg day, our 3rd and final leg day of the week. We're starting off with cable kickbacks. You know the drill for these now, but remember to keep yourself stable, step your working leg over the cable and hold on to the machine. We're doing 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps and focusing intensely on that mind to muscle connection. Next, we're doing B-stance dumbbell RDLs. Now these are a unilateral exercise, and that means we're focusing on one side at a time. We're just using 1 dumbbell for this one, and to improve grip strength, I'm going to be using straps. For most exercises, I like to train around 2 or 3 reps shy of failure. The studies have shown that there's not much more benefit going completely to failure than there is stopping 2 or 3 reps shy. Training to failure all of the time will also increase the time that you need to take to recover. So that's why I train close to failure. I just don't go all the way there every time I go to lift. If you've not used lifting straps before, here's a speedy little demo. I'll also link my ones in the description if you want to try them out for yourself. So with the strap around your wrist and the loose end in line with your thumb, you want the sticky pads facing upwards. You're going to thread the loose end under the bar with the sticky pad still facing upwards, then keep wrapping it round, and to lock it in place, you're going to twist it like you're revving a motorbike. For B-stance RDLs, take a slight step back with one of your legs, and this is going to be your supporting leg. We're pushing most of the weight through the front leg, and it's pretty much the same movement pattern as we used for regular barbell RDLs earlier in the week, but instead we're focusing on one leg at a time, and remember to squeeze your glutes at the top. This exercise is going to target our hamstrings and our glutes. I don't know if I mentioned at the start of this, but this is our glutes and hamstrings day. You also want to keep the dumbbell close to your legs the whole time, and it should be moving in a straight line up and down. Once you've done 6 to 8 reps on each leg, then we're going to drop the weight and do 10 to 12 reps for our next set. I usually do barbell hip thrust on this leg day as well, but I decided let's switch things up a bit. Let's do machine hip thrust. So here we are. We are doing 3 sets. First set, 10 to 12 reps. Second set, 12 to 15 reps. Third set, 12 to 15 reps. That sounded quite intense, I'm sorry. But so is this exercise. The form is pretty much the same as the barbell hip thrust, but you want to make sure that you adjust the seat to the right position so that your knees are making about 90 degrees when you're at the top of your hip thrust. I find that I don't need to go as heavy when I'm using the hip thrust machine, and I can still get a really good glute pump, so that's always a win. And we're still lifting heavy when we're doing barbell hip thrusts on our other leg day. Next up is leg press. Because we want to target the glutes, we're going to use a high and wide foot placement. We're doing 3 sets. The first 2 sets are 8 to 10 reps, and then the third set is 10 to 12 reps, and we're going to drop the weight for that one. The one thing I'll note with leg press is make sure that you don't lock your knees out at the top, because you want to keep that constant tension on your legs. In terms of depth, you're really aiming to get as low as you can without your lower back coming off the seat. I find it really helpful to pull myself into the seat using the handles, because that way I just find that I'm able to generate more force. Now we're going to really burn out the hamstrings with seated leg curl. You can do lying leg curl if you want, I just prefer a seated leg curl. We're doing 2 sets. The first set is 8 to 10 reps, and then we're going to drop the weight and do 10 to 12 reps. We're going to bang it out to complete failure. Your hamstrings are going to be burning, but you're going to thank me afterwards. You know you're training hard enough if you're making faces like this. I know this video is getting pretty long, so if you've made it this far in the video, comment real one, because honestly, you are the real ones. Like, I don't know how many people make it this far, but you could be doing all of these workouts and still get 0 results, because nutrition plays such a big role. Like, the start of my fitness journey, I didn't know about nutrition and I saw progress so slowly. I'm gonna post what I eat in a week soon, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. But in the meantime, check out this video next to make sure you're eating what you need to be able to build muscle. See you there.